And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Match number 3. We're all kind of calming down after VP versus Na'Vi. I know, it seems like a bit of a blur, but here we are, back so quick to Game 3. G2 versus Vitality. A beautiful M and Ace on the analyst desk, and we set ourselves up for this matchup. The two teams are only a couple points away from one another, with G2 just above Vitality currently in the rankings of EUL. Today can really swing the standings in the mid to top of the pack here in EUL, and G2 want to continue their up and up so far in the league as Vitality set themselves up for a comeback. They've won narrowly versus Empire in their last week. They said they had a lot to work on. We heard that in the interview. Can they do it today is the question. So why don't we talk about these two squads, starting off with Team Vitality. Our full French squad has come back after what I would say is the failure of their international experiment.
Well, it certainly seems that they are back on the up, Milosh. But one thing that I would say for Vitality, that I think the picture that I really need to paint here, when I was coming into today and I was sat studying Vitality and thinking, how is this going to go? It hit me. I realised that for me, these are the biggest unknown that we have left in EUL right now. I think we know the teams that are on a downward trend, we know the teams that are on an upward trend, whereas Vitality, they just seem to sit perfectly in the middle of those two things at the minute. They could well easily climb the table, they could drop. We just don't always know which one we're going to get. It's very unpredictable at the minute from Team Vitality. As you see there, the games have all been close. That round performance graph there, just displaying that for you. Basically, the bigger the bars, the more sort of influential the win or loss. So they've been very, very close every single time. It's been tough for them in a couple of games. They started out with BDS. It's never going to be easy. But today, I think the questions start to get answered for Vitality. You know, was that BDS game tight because BDS was sluggish, or was it that Vitality are maybe better than they've shown in other games? G2 are really going to test that theory today.
Well, why don't we just have a chat about G2? Let's bring up their roster, a squad that wants to continue their winning streak. They lost the very first Playday against Secret 7-5, a tight game on Consulate, but they've kept up the wins. Very effective against Virtus.pro and smashing Kovana in our last Playday. Is a wonderful gentleman of G2.
Yeah, when a team opens up with a loss and they say, oh, it's, we played it scared, we played it rubbish, we're not going to do that again. And you're kind of like a little bit like, okay, yeah, well, like a lot of the teams say that. They proved it. The way that they've played the past two games, they've looked better and better and stronger. Once upon a time, you have a look at G2 and you say, a team of all fraggers, that'll never work. They were prepping for this. Out of the change to this meta from what it was, they've had, in a way, they had this structure, they had this semblance. It was a lot easier for Kayak to kind of come in and find this role because they didn't have to fully adapt what the rest of them were doing. And it shows in how well they're performing. You have all of them able to pick up the mantle of putting down bodies when they need to. They're mobile, they're reactive, they're looking stronger and stronger. And I'm going to say that I don't think we've seen their strongest yet. Whether they get there or not is down to them to keep playing and keep improving, but it's a heck of a showing so far.
Well, I want to touch on a subject right after the head-to-head, which is the support staff, but let's go through the head-to-head very quickly here. You guys picked one player out of each one of these two teams. Who are they? They're Virtue and Rise. Now, what's the comparison here, Ace? Please, can you elucidate?
Well, we picked these two players because they're both players that maybe came in with a slow start. Virtue absolutely exploding through Playday 2 and 3, going fantastically well. Rise having a particularly good Playday 3 as well himself. So they are both very definitely on an upward trajectory, and we can see they're playing very similar roles, coming in on those flex roles. We've got Sledge and Rune both picking up the same sort of operators, around the same kill threshold. It's just that there's far fewer deaths on the side of Virtue, but look at the entry for Rise. They're just really both operating well for the teams where they need them, and they seem to be getting better and better.
I think that's it too, is, when you're looking at G2, and I'm going to talk about how well they're able to adapt to the fragging game, is you think of what the role that Virtue plays is, and you're like, okay, he's like flex fragger support situation. He's there when he needs to be, and because of that, he's free to step in so much behind the work of what the other guns are doing. He's running some of the games the past couple of weeks from being on the bottom of the board at the beginning, and I think that level of growth just shows how comfortable G2 are with this current meta and mentality.
Well, we have a bit of time here, not much, so just enough for us to talk about our map. Let's see which one we're going to be playing on. I want to touch on the support staff, but I guess we won't. Fair enough.
We'll
There
have
it
time
is.
afterwards, Milosh, don't worry.
Thanks.
Apparently we might have
Lobby
time.
is not... Yeah, there you go. Lobby is not ready. There's some issues, so we'll have the time, I hope. G2 ban at Coastline. Clubhouse is our decider, and they're going to start off on the attacking side with Vitality on defense. Vitality on defense might just be the ideal start that they would need for Clubhouse. But what are your thoughts, Ace?
I think that this is going to be a very tight matchup on Clubhouse, if I'm honest. I think, as we say, Vitality have been a little bit unpredictable. I'd be interested to see whether we have another battle over CCTV and Cash. We saw a real struggle to defend it earlier in that Rogue game. Maybe somebody can come along here and just show us exactly how it should be done. We had an interesting chat about the bandit tricking of East Wall at the minute and how it just seems to be sort of really degrading in value at the minute because that wall gets opened up quickly no matter what, and maybe it's time for teams to start evolving around that.
I think one of the things about Club is we've seen it a lot from Vitality over this kind of play period. It's a really good map for French teams, seemingly. Technically, the French haven't been beaten on it this season so far. Trainhard were able to take it against Secret, and Vitality took it against Empire, and, well, BDS took it against Trainhard and Vitality. The French like Clubhouse is the story here. So it's a good map for them to try and dig in and play against it. But at the same time, if you're going to talk about, obviously, teams that enjoy that map, G2 famously enjoy a lot of maps. And they, took it just last week, 7-1 against Kavana. They're in a very good stead for this. But out of all these maps, as I said, I think this is probably a good place for Vitality to put up a fight.
Okay, support staff. There's my point. So we know G2 has Shas, right? The most decorated coach that we have in Rainbow Six history. You've got Protax as well coming in as basically babysitter for the team because you always need someone like that as a manager. And on the other side, with Vitality, you have Lilyun and you have Helby that have been working around the squad for so long. So and Robs, of course, who's joined as a manager himself at the start of this season. But what's the take here? How much of an impact have they had on Vitality and on G2? But I want to more direct that on Vitality right now, given their history.
I think, we see more and more in Siege that you cannot devalue the work that's been put in behind the scenes from the support staff. And I think the only time that you'd ever really get to a point of understanding how influential it is having a team without them there. And, just think about all those things that at that point would come down to the players rather than focusing on actually playing and improving mechanical skill, taking down all the stats that are necessary, doing the analysis, the VOD review, setting up new strats, working with new metas, so much work, and that is before you even touch on things that the managers deal with around, in and around the game and helping the players out and just allowing them that freedom to focus. And I think, that's something that Vitality have put a lot of value in. You can see that by the number of support staff they've got there working together in conjunction to try and improve the team's performance. And I think it's something that's going to pay dividends over the, the sort of short to mid-term.
I think if we're going to talk short term as well, and we're going to talk support stuff, you have to talk about this is the first time we'll see these teams tested in a very narrow window against each other. The first time we have 2 play days within the week, which was obviously the norm before. It's something that some are going to be more attuned to, more ready for, to be able to pick up sticks and try new ideas and new capitalizations. Granted, it's quick turnarounds and learning, and they've had a little bit of time as well outside, but you never know what problems show up on game day. You never really know the leaks in the boat that you have to try and plug until it's potentially suffered, sunk, and been pulled back up to the dockyard to rebuild. will they be able to have the time to rebuild it? You have the experience of Shaz. You have the experience of what he's been able to bring towards not only coaching G2, but coaching in Siege in general. He is the blueprint and the precursor to a lot of modern coaching styles. The same way that they talk about how G2's communications in-game was the precursor to a lot of how other teams adapted. Multi-IGLs, multi-purpose, multifaceted. They've set the tone for this, so you expect them to be good. But as you said, this is the test. This week is the test for Vitality to be able to step into that.
Vitality is playing. I want to hammer this point, by the way, for everybody watching at home. We're going to keep repeating this as the show goes on. For the next couple, 2-3 weeks, actually, every single week you're going to have to expect 2 EU Playdays as we go into the Super Week status that we're going to have at the end of this first stage of the year. So right now you're seeing G2 playing Vitality. Come this Thursday, April 8th, that is the second Playday of this week, Vitality will play Virtus Pro that we just saw have a super close game, narrowly losing out against Na'Vi, and G2 is playing Trainhard. So there's kind of imbalances in preparation for next week. And I wonder if Vitality are prepared for playing now 2 Playdays because it took them so long to just get in the groove. You talked about that, Ace, like, I don't know what they're going to do. They're so unpredictable. Are they going to slap their opponents? Or are they going to just, get rolled over?
It really wouldn't surprise me to see a mixture within each week, Milosh. It wouldn't surprise me to see them come out and have a great day against G2 and then struggle against Virtus Pro. And it just seems that they've been up and down. I think the thing that Vitality need to do is, first of all, get a positive result, come in here and back up that win against Empire with a win against G2. And then they just need to double down. They just need to focus in and commit to that path, that upward trajectory, and try to just continually improve week after week. Are they going to be in the top 2 at the end of the stage? Unlikely. Can they get into the top 4? Now, that is a question that I think is worth asking.
What about Bibu?
What about what?
What about Bibu?
Cut out Bibu. Bibu,
yeah.
Obviously, old school, big fan of the way that he plays the game. Bibu was, one of those, if I'm going to talk precursors and I'm going to talk people who set ideas, the movement that he would do, the big frag movements that he would do, it used to be the conversation. He was one of the ones frequently mentioned alongside Nesk, alongside, kind of Joystick as well, and obviously Pengu and Kanto. I think Bibu is one where it's redefining where you are in the space and kind of defining where you are in the position of how everything is going with the teams, I suppose, is the easiest way of looking at it. I think when we're looking at Vitality and they're still defining their roles, they're still defining the kind of players that they are or the kind of setup that they are. Bibu has generally found himself, he's slightly under on his KDs -2. He's been playing Thermite and generally bringing that heavy hard destruction the same way that Leon has sort of rotated into that role after the kind of young gun days. So I think it's still, for me, that still paints the story of they're learning how to be Vitality. They're learning what they can apply of themselves here.
I don't know if Bibu's a little lost in that position. I don't know if he's just, like you say, we've come to expect certain things from certain players, and like you say, Fluke, he's playing on the Thermite, but then you look at the defence, he's playing a lot of roaming ops like the Jaeger, and I just don't know if those two things are sort of gelling for, you've got very different mindsets there when you come in as a Thermite and you've got a job to do, get walls open, get diffusers down, and then you're going on defense as a Jaeger and you've got to get out there and get kills. They're just very different mindsets. And I don't know if that's maybe impacting a little bit. And somehow they just need to sort of find some way of fine tuning and balancing that and just trying to get some sort of equity between the two.
So look at Vitality and their bans on Clubhouse the last Playday. They went for a Maverick and a Wamai ban, and for G2 went for a Zofia and Clash. Now, granted, I could see the Clash being more targeted towards Kovana, but the Zofia ban is quite ballsy, and I really like it. A lot of teams rely on the Zofia crutch nowadays. For me, I believe it is my personality trait, so I can see why they would be so adamant on removing it. It seems like it disrupts so many teams.
It was something we talked about with the mute ban earlier, is when you see one of those operators that some teams will have as part of a setup, but it's not a familiar ban. It's not like, Thatcher. It's not Mira. It's not one of those removals. It's okay, they're taking a bit of a risk. It's not the most uncommon ban, obviously, but at the same time, it's still rare enough to be, it changes the face of some games. It's one of those, let's see if we can limp better than they can, or you're putting yourself in, you know, it's like a sports day. It's you're doing an egg and spoon race. You're making the run a little bit tougher because you think you can have the better balance with the spoon and the egg to get you to the end. You know, I like it, but against a team like G2, who famously love to adapt, you know, we've seen them play a lot of pocket plays, full confidence for the first time on a grand final. Historically, they're not scared by pocket bans. They're not scared by these possibilities of claiming opportunities. They see it as a moment to be creative, and creativity is one of their strongest suits.
That's exactly the point I wanted to get to, actually, just before we continue. Hap obviously was talking about his bar stock fantasy, I guess. Now, finally having a team playing it, and it seems like G2 responded with, you know, the eyes open. So I will hold G2 right here, right now, to the potential, like, hey, show us what you got on bar stock, make Stein happy, and make us all happy, because we haven't seen that site in Lord knows how long.
Time.
It definitely hasn't been one.
Honestly, just
I think Rogue tried it back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, this is the last time they did it. That was a year and a half ago.
Just as a quick thing, if there was a better, like, if there was a slightly better designed fourth site on Club, I think this season we would have seen it more than CC. I think CC itself it's not easy for attackers, but it's easier than the other three. We're seeing it picked first less and less, so much from a statistical point of view. The reason that it's still there, I truly believe, is because Bar is such a bad site. But if it was slightly better, and if there was slightly more to it, which is a whole other discussion that, you know, any answer I give will be wrong. Look at the awesome stuff that like Zeman does on Twitter. I think that it would see more play.
By the way, we're waiting on one more player to join on in. It's some technical issue, so that's why you're seeing us here. I know you would have enough of our faces, but we're just waiting. We're trying to kill time with something as productive as possible. Ace, please, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, no, we were talking about the potential for a Zofia ban there and the impact that it can have. And it's quite interesting because we just had one on Saturday in LATAM, Ints versus MIBR. Ints banned out the Zofia. But the thing that I said at the time, I think is very relevant here as well. If you're going to come in with something as a little pocket strategy like that, right, we're actually going to take away, you know, a surprising operator here, or a powerful operator, you've got to be prepared, of course, to play without it yourself. So Ints came in on the attack against MIBR, took out the Zofia, and then all MIBR did was just bring a ton of utility. They just loaded up with 3 shields, bulletproof cameras, and they just everything they could that would make it difficult for Ints to be able to have enough utility then to clear it out without that Zofia. And they just ran over them. There was just, Ints would just, I think they lost 5-1 in the first half on their attack. After a Zofia ban, it was just a complete backfire. And you've got to be very, very careful of that. And so I think something like a Zofia ban, it's one of them that you've really got to take out when you're starting out on the defense. You know, you've got to try and maximize the advantage of that before you have to muscle through it yourself.
I just want to mention, since you mentioned Ints, and I know maybe not everybody is watching LATAM, I highly recommend you go and watch LATAM, not just because of the games, but also Exotrica and Geo are casting the games, and Ace were a wonderful host for the show. So highly recommend you go and watch it. But what is it? There was a post today by Mr. User Josh on the Pro League subreddit, who posts, "My poor man Hornetau going through it." Since you mentioned INTZ, and they have been on such a rough losing streak now, it's just, I got a feel for him. And, you know, I think a team like Vitality could have almost slipped into that same status had they not won their last Playday against Empire. So I'm hoping today, if Vitality can't beat G2, at least take them to the edge, and at least take them to overtime. Because right now, Vitality have pulled BDS to the edge, right? They pulled Rogue to the edge and went to OT. They've beaten Empire, but only barely in 7-5. Today, take G2 to OT if you can't win them. Show us something, and show yourself something, because you can only imagine the amount of mental pressure that the players themselves will put themselves under, and it makes it very hard for them to perform, especially now that we mentioned there are 2 play days per week, and you have to prepare to play VP in 2 days. That's a lot to ask.
It really is, and I've honestly got a strong feeling that you're right, Milosh. I think Vitality are going to come out and push G2 in a way that I think they're just going to leave us with no more answers than we've got now. I come into it saying they are, for me, the biggest unknown in the league at the minute. And I think they go close with G2, maybe an overtime, maybe a 1-point loss, say, for example. And it just leaves us nowhere closer to knowing whether they're going to be capable of taking maybe 4th, 5th spot in the league, because at the end of the day, G2 are playing well. They've got the momentum. And if you come in and get a 1-point overtime loss against them, you've got to say, you know what, fair enough. That's actually a reasonable result at the minute against the G2 side that are going well. So Vitality wouldn't surprise me at all to come out of this like that and just leave us still scratching our heads about them.
We're really scratching our heads as to when the game would actually be starting now, because there's some technical issues that are happening, I believe, on one of the Vitality players' side, trying to get everything together. And we're just waiting to load into the game. We talked about Clubhouse, how it's been played between, these 2 teams played it in our last Playday in their individual matches against Empire and Kovana, Vitality and G2 respectively. We also talked about the operator bans. That would be interesting, specifically about the Zofia, but you talked about the bandit trick that would happen on the east side ace of defense into cash. But still, a lot of teams are going to, they're going to cash as kind of their main place to go, but a lot of teams have been turning their attention towards playing downstairs inside of the basement in church, and a lot of turning their attention to bedroom and to gym. And we saw even, earlier today between Rogue and Empire, that even if you end up reinforcing and kind of onioning your defense and layering it, you still can end up losing to pure gunfights.
Absolutely, and I think CCTV and Cash at the minute it's a site that is maybe in transition, or needs to be in transition, so that I say. It's been very viable. It's got to a point where it feels like the attackers have really unlocked it now. And I don't know if there's been a couple of game changers that have maybe helped that, with things like the alteration to Thatcher's EMPs. And I mean, particularly if you've got Thatcher on the board, then forget about it. East Wall is getting opened within the first minute. But even then, it still seems to be getting cleared out very easily. And I don't know whether it's time now for the defenders to look at that and think, actually, we need some innovation here. We need to stop just throwing Bandit at that wall, because it's really not buying us anything. Is there anything that we could bring in place of the Bandit that would actually just gain us more within the round? Is there a greater benefit we can squeeze out of that operator slot? It's 20% of your team, and if you're dedicating that to something that is just not even successful for the first minute of the round, you've got to have a look elsewhere and see, is there anything else that we can bring to the table here? Is there some innovation? Is there a different way we can go about defending this site, where we accept that East Wall is going to get opened and we learn to play around it?
I think that's it as well, if Siege is a game of adaptations, Siege is a game of seeing what your opponent does and developing it. Sure, it's so ingrained at this point. It's so known. Every step is so predetermined.
Yeah, but what if G2 just turns out and tells you, what, we're going to play bar stock. What are you going to do about it? How do you adapt to that?
A rush, theoretically.
It's Vitality. Do they rush? They don't know how to rush if it's not the last 15 seconds.
Maybe they're the perfect opponents to do it against, because Vitality will still just try and execute in the final 15 seconds and see if they can make things work. I think it's one of those things where it's like you're looking at a chance. You're looking at a throw in the dark. If we had those amazing graphics that were shown at the very beginning, it's 1% picks. This is a 1% Hail Mary, and I would love to see it, but I don't know if we'll see a success rate after it.
All right, it seems like the players are trying to help one another to get the fix rolling, but there might be some PC swaps that could fix the issue here. So, yeah, we're still gonna wait for it. But since you've seen us kind of exhausting our topics, we're not really planning on this long of a segment. Fluke, Ace, I will be back with you in just a few minutes. We're gonna take a very short break, so only a few minutes. Hopefully by then there will be a fix. We will update you on the stream. Go back if there's anything, or on social media. So don't you worry. The game will be live. We just don't want to keep on rambling until it's set to go. You can come back and throw it to club between G2 and Vitality. Very, very short break. Don't you worry. We'll be back in a moment. See you then.
Yeah. Ow! Yeah. Y'all think too small, I got big dreams. You just starting, I'm way ahead at the end scenes. Started reading and dodging all of the quick schemes. Money like your Spotify, boy, I got 10 streams. And I'm still looking for more. My people, they got a soar. I'm putting that on the Lord. Ain't accepting, ignore, just kicking down all the doors. Guarantee you, boy, if I ask for it, it's gotta be real big. I gotta make it just for my kids and for their kids' as kids. That's wealth years and years. Promise my brother soon as he out and finish this bid, we finna do it bigger than anybody ever did. The odds is real big. Jobs that's real big. Satan trying a little, my God is real big. Stayed up on the grind on the cars is real big. I gotta do it big, the only way that I can live. And I promise I'm trying to. Before you count me out, homie, let me remind you. They was blocking the shine, now I think it's my time to. Capping them dollar signs like lights, they'll blind you. Let me rewind to. Back when I was broken, I couldn't acquire 2 cents. And now I got 2 rents. They was sleeping on me, homie, must have got too big. On my phone, I be like, who this? Damn right, hell yeah, I'm brand new. Smell like can too. I'm fresh forever like canned food. Try and tell me what I can't do. I wanna see the world, my vision on Shamu. That mean I got goals that's real big, foes that's real big. Y'all offer too little, sorry, my soul is real big. Coming into the ring with blows that's real big. I gotta do it big.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for sticking through the lays with us. But Vitality have managed to get the fix rolling for their player, and we are ready to go. So Fluke, Ace, thank you so much for digging through the details and beyond in our pregame segment here. But it is time to throw it to our casters. Very excited for this one. G2 versus Vitality. They will go to Clubhouse, and I want to see how it goes. Des and Jess will guide us through it, so please give me your best catch-ams in chat. We'll see you in game. G2 Vitality begins now.
I just saw everyone in chat asking exactly the same question. What song is this? And I got production to go and find out for me. It's Best Laid Plans by Castlefield. Go and check it out. It is a banger. I appreciate the cat jams. But we've actually got a game to appreciate now that the Moss issue has been rectified. We are ready to get into what is going to be a very interesting game. G2, a team that have looked excellent on the attacking side of maps so far. Coming up against Vitality, a little bit of a wild card in the region, Jess. The social vote leans heavily towards G2. But Vitality feel like one of those teams that you just can't write off until you've seen them start playing.
I think I said last week that they were on a really good foundational track to be a good team. I definitely felt a lot more confident in them than I felt about the new team of Train Hard, for example. So if I compare those two French teams, I think Vitality is way more on the up and up. They've got a really good support staffing system behind them. They've got a really good organization behind them that has put in a lot of resources, whether financially or otherwise. So for me, Vitality, if they put the right puzzle pieces in place, things will start to look much clearer for them. Nevertheless, we'll get into the bans. It's a Maverick ban, and will Thatcher be in play for this one? Yes, it will. There we go. We spoke about that wall in the previous road game of Clubhouse getting absolutely shredded in the first minute. Well, that's because Thatcher was in play. You'll get it this time. A Capitao and an Aruni ban. I tell you what, Shaz is working overtime in the background to get the perfect counter bans here against Team Vitality.
You say counterbans as well, but Capitao has been a G2 special this season. I think the pick rate for Capitao was only about 7%, and I guarantee you a good number of that was by G2. In at least 2 of their 3 games previously, they had brought it for at least 2 of their attacking rounds in those games. To mixed success is probably the best way I'd describe it. I think we all remember last week their attacks onto Clubhouse Wall, for example, making use of it there. We'll see if it would have maybe got used today, but of course, being banned away, it's absolutely not going to be. And I agree with you on the Aruni ban. It's we went over the ban rates earlier. I think it had like 7% ban rate, very minimal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, 75% of the time when Team Vitality have a Rooney as an option to play, they'll play it on this particular map. So I think what they're trying to do is get away an operator that they themselves don't rely on as G2, but that Vitality have shown more than 50% of the time they want to play on this map, regardless of the site. 75% of the time, that's a pretty high percentage to me. So shout out to Shaz, who's doing that good sort of VOD scouring in the background to go, actually, this is an operator they might have a little bit of a crutch on. So there you go. But nevertheless, we'll have a couple of these sneaky little operators come in. One of them that's popping up for me is the Nook for Citizen. And then on the other side of the coin here, we got Rise. You think there's going to be any hatch hopping here, considering it looks like it's going to be a roam?
We always speak about the Oryx and say how the fantasy kind of exists that he will go hatch hopping and, you know, hit an attack from the back late round and ruin everything. That's the dream state, but it never really comes to light. I think we've seen it maybe twice across all leagues since Oryx came to be. I am really interested by the Nook, though. As we all know now, obviously has grenades, has done for a while. And I think when we saw those changes come in, people were like, oh, we're going to see her get picked way more. Only she didn't really get picked all that much more. She's kind of stayed as this very niche operator that barely any team ever picks. Keen to see what Citizen's intended use case is here. He has been the player that repeatedly has been the one charging into the back of a site, mid-execute, for example, and trying to gun down 2 or 3 people.
Wait,
if he
what?
can... Are they gearing up for a full dirt rush here? Surely
they know
not.
it's a full roam. Dirt wasn't reinforced, and if Citizen could crouch walk his way on in or just use his
Is there an echo drone?
It should give him a static. So for viewers who aren't aware, it should give them a static feedback that Citizen is there. That's why you saw a couple of shots fire on through. Maybe there is a bit of an indication that that's where he was coming from. Just like Vigil's gadget, it will give these white lines on your screen. And Rise already going down as he attempts to make impact up towards kitchen hallway. Uno will shut him down quick as can be. But this was the counter that they were looking for. And I think that's why some of the defenders were trying to, rotate back very quickly.
Interesting, that was the initial setting point, but at least here's the pressure that he's bringing. Almost gets a couple of chip shots down onto Shinka, who fortunately walks away with his life, unlike Citizen to miss a crucial shot like that would have put them into a 5 versus 3 incredibly early in the round. And Cactus can be dialing back these Echo drones, calling them back to sight, and Shinka's stuck a little bit between a rock and a hard place, it feels like, with pressure coming up blue and Citizen holding inside of dirt. Needs to be worried he doesn't get himself picked off too soon here. Maybe even find himself forced back out of sight, at which time G2 can press in and look to take the positional advantage.
Well, he'll get rid of that mute jammer that was stunting Kanto's drone, and he'll be able to come pushing on forward. What intel can he collect? He'll find a P4. He knows someone was playing over towards dummies as well, but they've rotated over towards blue. He's ever so careful of the double stack there to see whether or not someone's playing behind it. He wants to make the entry, but he can't quite get on in. Surely the rotate call comes out now, Des, because you've given up the gig. You've let him know, we're in dirt. This is the play we want to make. Kayak's going to have to be the difference maker, I think, as to whether or not the rotate call will come out. And if he does, his last exothermic, instead of being used on the hatch, might be used over towards church. But he will commit to it, and he'll also get down to a C4. They won't know this because points are off, but they might hear him crawling on around as they attempt to pepper shots on up above.
I mean, yes, the rotate back out once you know you've got the players still pushing through dirt shows it's quite a long-term commitment. And for Kayak, the exothermic got denied off was the big one. Because my question to you was going to be, well, you've got the mute on side, so why have all 4 impacts been used to look towards road? You must be kidding me. You must be joking. Shinka's down off the back of a friendly C4. Here comes the push they were looking for. They were waiting for their chance. Citizen evens things out. Why says why not? Bibu's managed to bring one back for himself, but is in a 1 versus 3. Gets the spray down and does stop the plant. Oh my god, are these team kills actually going to throw the round away for G2? Do they even know? They must do. Bibu's managed to drag it back over. He's got to hold on for 2 seconds. Virtue can't find it. The round's going to be won. What the hell was that?
What just happened? What was that? It was like watching a plane crash into a train. And a train, and then the train hits a truck, and then the truck rolls over into a burning barn. I mean, that was so ridiculous from late round to execution to whatever that ended up being. Unbelievable to me that you and I have cast several games tonight, and of course our colleagues that have just shown unbelievable outcomes round after round. This is one that's probably spelling quite a spicy matchup ahead, but nevertheless, if you want a quick TLDR as to what happened, a couple of unfortunate team kills narrowed out by either side.
A series of unfortunate events.
There you go. There's the brand new movies, ladies and gentlemen. Series of Unfortunate Events, chapter number 4. That's your round for you. That's what we're going with. That's a narrow win for Vitality on a site that they probably, frankly, shouldn't have won.
I'd love to know what went through Citizen's head when it came to that team kill moment. Not that it was ever planned, but obviously it's one of those kind of snap reflex moments of quick, right, there's someone there, got to shoot them quick. Oh crap, it's an ally. Not quite realizing, and then Bibu win a 1 versus 3. Kanto cancels the plant as well. It wasn't Kayak that was planting, it was Kanto, but at this moment they've kind of already screwed it, I think. And with the 2 players playing as separately as they are, when you know the player has just sprayed you down from that ash wall, surely the call comes through for Virtue to come pushing a little bit deeper or hold a different angle somewhere. A little bit odd that he still sat so far back, but I imagine there was just confusion in the G2 camp at that point.
There is no way to accurately tell your teammate exactly what is going on and where he needs to be and where that last person is when you don't even know where you died from. So I'm going to cut G2 a little bit of slack here to say that, 1.5 seconds? Probably not enough time to get across the point that you need to. Nevertheless, they'll go over towards gym and bedroom. And of course, we spoke about, or rather the analysts spoke about on the desk, that this is becoming one of the more favored sites, especially with the Aruni being brought in. It will be banned, so they can't use it. A lot of teams will bring a castle instead. But Vitality says, we're going to bring a Frost. That's going to be our change to the meta composition here. And it'll be G2's opportunity to possibly get a bit of a foothold over towards logistics and cash, pretty much for free by the looks of it.
You say it's changed to the meta comp, but Frost, I would argue, is actually kind of meta on this site now. More and more teams are picking her up, and I'd be really keen to see kind of presence per site, even across all teams, to see what it looks like. But because of the ability to jump in through the windows and jump into frost mats, we saw it happen in the game earlier on, for example, it can be incredibly potent, has all the transformation for the site back next to the shotgun, a decent primary, the shield to play behind in the bed. She does everything you need on this site is the best way to look at it.
Speaking of everything you need, a couple of banshees have been strewn over towards the breach of Jacuzzi. That's going to slow them down exponentially. Who do they have close by to deal with it? I'm checking out on those operators. There's a new jammer on that now newly reinforced bathroom wall. And after a really aggressive Bibu before over towards Con Wall, Rise decides he wants to give us a rendition of how that works out. Does end up backing on out, and as half the round has elapsed, they're looking to get that verticality. He'll miss it on out, but Uno doesn't miss. He'll get the double kill, the quick entry on his side. Do you expect Thatcher to be the one doing this, Des? I certainly don't.
No, but knowing what Virtue normally does when he plays on this operator, I think Uno's gone, no, give me the Thatcher buff this week, because he's on 4 kills. The C4 comes out, and I thought for a second might catch something. It did some damage, but it's going to be a flawless round. Citizen and Uno just taking charge of the site there. Much better from G2, and not all as chaotic as round 1 was.
I think you and I spoke last Playday. It may have been the last EUL Playday or APAC Playday. If you're missing out on APAC, and it's an absolute blast to watch, to make sure you do tune in when those days do come. But I think you and I discussed how if Medics, as one of the best observers in the world alongside Easy, you know, our other observer, if he misses something, that means it's so explosive that not even one of the best observers in the world could have caught or, you know, caught on to the fact that that was what was going to happen. God, what was going to happen? That is a tongue twister. Try and say that 10 times very quickly, because I certainly can't. But
we did this on the last not the last broadcast. We did it quite recently, if you remember. Do you remember? Have you tried them at all?
The tongue twister.
Yeah,
you know, I smashed it. Yeah, I remember I smashed it. I don't know how, but I absolutely did.
I can't remember that. So for chat, if you do want to partake, Irish wristwatch, try saying that over and over. And the second one was genuine, unique New York. And see how many times you can say it quickly without tripping over yourself. The answer normally is not a lot. Fun little one to amuse yourself with as the game goes on.
I was going to say, the point I was trying to make eventually and then that Des derailed naturally, as he does.
Oh, yeah.
Is that, naturally, is that, you know, Medics will 9 times out of 10 catch things, and I think that that's what makes G2 an explosive team, is that you can have any player on their entire lineup who will make a hero play like that and just get you all the power position you need, and you don't even have to worry about making that 3rd and 4th step in your attacking line. You just go, okay, we can skip those now. Uno's paved the way for us. We're good to go, and that's really cool to see that that's what he can do, even on an operator and a role that you technically shouldn't see those kind of plays from.
Yeah, it's fun to see. It's been an exciting start to the game overall so far, going from the clown round in number 1 to being a flawless round from G2 in round 2. You're really getting all flavors so far today, Jess. Let's see how round number 3 plays out on CC, the site that the desk were talking about in quite some detail, of how a lot of teams seem to be really struggling with this site because teams can so comfortably open up the east wall now. I think here it's a little bit tougher. There isn't the ace on side. It is instead they're going to be the Habana. But commonly what teams have done is drop a Selma charge on one side of the wall, the exothermic on the other at the same time. And the bandit who's playing there, once has been EMP'd off in the first place, sadly can't prevent both sides being opened up. Empire were executing it really well earlier on in their game.
I'm a little bit confused. Habana's not banned. You can just change her secondary, or rather her gadget, over to 2 pellets over and over and over again and just keep throwing EMPs and do an exothermic left-right, and there's no way to continually bandit trick that. Bibu even has one of them down as we're currently speaking, and they have 2 grenades that they could work with as well as concussions. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, G2 are maybe not thinking critically here, but I think it's a key to me here that now it's taking their time to get Virtue into grenade spot. They're trying to get rid of the ADSs. There's so much going on. I think they're making it harder than it needs to be, but here we go. They'll start working it on out. This timing. Is a very finicky situation, and there we go. Virtue, he'll get gifted. It won't be the grenade, but it'll be the gun tip of his own to make it work. And that took a lot longer than I think G2 expected, but they got the job done, and they got one for the taking as well.
The execution there. G2 one of the first teams I remember doing this a lot is dropping those Thatcher EMPs on the roof to disable gadgets below. And people might say, well, why did they drop two? One on the breach, one on the roof, seemingly random. No, it was to disable the ADS just underneath where the EMP went off so it could sing on through and the grenade could hit onto that east wall to guarantee that it was definitely going to get opened. It was well played. Rise inside a garage, equally making his own good play here onto Virtue, the man of the hour, who got that frag through and collected the opening kill immediately after. So things sit at 4 apiece, 35 seconds on the clock for G2. You start feeling that time pressure now really starting to warm up, but they have got the East Breach. I think they have got themselves garage control as well. Things are starting to line up for them. All that's left to go for is the execute.
Rise will be the only speed bump that they need to get through. And Uno, where did you come in? Was that CC window? It doesn't matter because he makes it work. He wants to frag out, but what they need to be focusing on is getting Kayak into the plant. Is there one more smoke babe remaining? Yes, there is. But Kayak decides instead of planting default, he'll plant deep. They'll run on in, but P4's there to collect. If he runs out and stops the plant, it'll be difference making, but it won't be the case as Citizen, rather than the Ash, has his Sophia in hand, and that's really what they needed to make this push work. As we said before, if that grenade misses, the Bandit has freedom. But I mean, there was just so much coordination in that push. Took a little bit of time, but sometimes you can sacrifice that time in a round to make things perfect.
It's the second round in a row where everyone's gone, where did Uno come from? Last round, it was him just bursting somehow through construction unscathed into bedroom and getting 2 kills from there. This round, it was him just appearing on catwalk and killing the player that was holding, or trying to hold against the 2 players that were pushing up the catwalk stairs. I think you were right, though. He did vault his way in through the west window and CC and get onto catwalk. Question then has to stand, how? There were 2 players inside of Cash, relatively uncontested, that could have shot him and no one did.
I think what it came down to is that they were trying to idealize or prioritize, is rather a better word, using those smokes to deny. Don't peek, don't throw your body unnecessarily. And this is something that a lot of players are often criticized on, is that they peek unnecessarily, especially in the dying moments of a round. And they wanted to rely on those smokes. Kayak said, I don't care about your smokes. I'm going to go plant deep. And he did that as he had 2 members holding his left hand and his right hand as he ran towards the plant spot. And they were holding the 2 other entries that would have denied him that plant. I just think it's good read by G2, a good late round stressful adaptation, and Vitality, you couldn't have countered that. They had the right idea if it was default, but it wasn't.
Here we go again. Frost being deployed once more by Shinka on the windows as well. We already saw back in the first game of the day, mentioned it earlier on, players jumping in, not even at the start of the round, but mid-round straight into Frostbats because they haven't drawn them out, or their attention is so hell-bent on executing that you just don't give enough awareness or time to consider things like the Frostbats being present. No doubt they won't make the same mistake again, or say they won't make the same mistake again. They'll be aware that they're there this time round, given they've already seen them in the previous round. But like we've already seen so many times today, we're going to start things off over on CC time. The big focus being over there for the defenders is that you don't give south balcony control to the attackers. They can't play on gym window. Therefore, you can safely have a defender playing inside of gym and contesting onto the breach.
Well, speaking of the breach, the first one that will be opened on up is the usual one, opening up onto platform. Make sure that you get that line of sight held, because what you need to then do is make sure that you can get Jacuzzi wall. Citizen, he tries to make that entry over towards red stairs, and this is the next point of ingress for the attackers, is making sure they get that cash control. There's a half wall opening there, which sort of screams to me that they are trying to use these lines of sight against the attackers. My worry is now, have they opened up Jacuzzi? We always criticize teams that open this up and then don't open up Jacuzzi. You're missing hard breach then. What do? That's the worry here. Rise will be the one to hold it on down. He had an excellent game last game, I felt, at least from an impact kill perspective. Let's see what he can do over towards Cash.
Always the focus again. Cash still 90 seconds in the round. You still got Bibu holding nice and close. Graded out with the shield. Now has to be wary also. A push coming down from the bottom of lounge. Here, it looks more like he's just going to hold firm and say, look, I know you guys have got the pinch on me inside of construction, because he's correct. Doesn't want to go walking too far away. And Uno almost finding one. Actually, Rise put down to being dangerously low. About 20 HP left on that health bar. One more shot and he will be down in the gutter. But you are right, Jesh. It's been 2 minutes now and G2 are not even inside the building yet.
This is what a good cash hold is meant to do. It's meant to absolutely waste time. And if you're Rise, it'll net your kills too. Bibu and Rise, you don't need any other player on the side of Vitality. All of the other support players are sitting back, kicking back, chilling on site when they've got Rise and Bibu holding down fort on the other side of the map. Des, it's not even the site they're trying to plant. It's literally on the other side of the map.
Oh man, it took 2 minutes to set up for this and they've been shut down this hard. Ouch. I mean, Uno's left alone entirely here. I imagine there's a bit of conversation going back and forth throughout the team here. The atypical, I think it was the team secret timeout, as they used to call it. Maybe people would call out and just go and sit on a roof somewhere for 2 minutes if the round was definitively lost, in which case it definitely looks like it is going to be. It's a 1 versus 4, arguably a 1 versus 5 if Rise can be recovered, but I think the team have just left him to die. Go on, son, patch your KD, cut the diffuser and do nothing with it. That's the way this round's going to play out. That brings things up to 2 apiece, and Vitality, admittedly, maybe not starting off with the strongest of wins in round number 1, are definitely going to make round number 4 look far more convincing.
That was the Bibu and Rise show in that round, and I can see why teams are really putting a lot of emphasis towards gym and bedroom when you could do stuff like that. I mean, yes, okay, it came down to frags, but those frags were propped up by a really good foundational setup. A lot of people will look over to the shield that was in top red that delayed and forced utility from the attackers. The line of sight that the Malusi of Rise was able to get by opening up the left panel of CC'd cash wall. I mean, it's those little touches to the strategy that gave Vitality that round. Truly was. And a good bit of coordination, communication that I'm sure we are never going to be privy to unless they start uploading those videos that I think Team Secret, old Team Secret used to upload, and old Vitality also used to upload some VODs about what their comms sounded like in rounds. That's things we don't get to see or hear. And for me, I'm sure that was absolutely going at 100 miles per hour there. So really well done from Vitality. I said they had a really good foundation, but I am pleasantly surprised as to what they're putting up here against G2.
And it's funny because before Rise started everything off with that 2k on the breach, we were saying, oh man, he's down to 20 HP, he's getting tagged for construction window, they're feeling the pressure. But it's that awkward kind of like stalemate in chess where no one can really make a move. Like they just sit there and wait, and then you make the move and they turn around and just completely copy. That doesn't happen in chess, but you get what I mean. Either way, beautiful extended hold coming out of them, completely shut down G2. If that trend carries on, they get themselves to 3, maybe 4 rounds. Suddenly you start worrying a bit for G2 because we've repeatedly said over the weeks they look like a phenomenal attacking team. Their defense is a little bit lackluster, and that's where work needed to be done.
Well, lucky for G2, if you look over to their stats, they are pretty much exactly even on both their attacking and defending round wins. So percentage-wise, statistic-wise, if they don't do too well on their first half, at least the stats will give us a little bit of an indication that they should do pretty all right at a 77% win rate on both their attack and defense. And that's the closest that any team has on the highest win rate on this map. So good on them. Look over to Team Vitality side. And, well, I mean, it's a brand new team, so how much can I put into it? But they are, for the most part, a 50% attacking win and a 50% defending win. So they themselves are a little bit lower than that of G2, but they show consistency in their attack and defensive wins. So for both teams, if you don't do well on this first round, that's okay, or first half, I should say. But Bibu has their number on speed dial. He just seems to know every single thing they're going to do and just stands there waiting and collects.
I mean, the opening kill's never a bad one onto Bibu, who's been doing so much work for Vitality, namely in the one round in which you got the 3k and won them the round number 1, but also contributed to in the previous Virtue with a second onto Shinka. It does feel like these rounds are so landslidey. A team finds the opening kill, the second or third normally follow through incredibly quickly. 2 versus 4. Cactus on the Echo takes down Virtue, and oh my god, Caracas also gone down. P4 is doing P4 things and pushing through a site and taking names, heads, skulls and scalps, you name it. The diffuser is down. Uno is left alive. There's a minute and 15 on the clock. He has got a lot of time to play with, but he's in a 1 versus 2. P4, a slither of HP. Uno now the same. Cactus puts the shut down. That's a 2v4 for the ages.
That really came down at the end there to Team Vitality being cool, calm, and collected. That is literally all that was. Sometimes when you can hear your site getting taken over, you can hear the plant going down, you want to make a hero play and you want to try and run at them and stop it no matter what. But they held back. They tried to use their C4s when that didn't work. They stood back and they assessed their options. Okay, is blue clear? No, it's not. Okay, kill that player, dead. All right, okay, we have a bit more control to work with now. That's what I think happened last round when they were holding cash. They didn't try and overextend in their top red and their cash hold. Both Rise and Bibu, they held back, they held their positions confidently, and they didn't give it up. That's why that retake was so possible there for Vitality. It's got to be good coordination and comms, because that doesn't come naturally to players, especially when you're on two completely opposite ends of the site and you're attempting to retake a position that has been previously lost. I'm really impressed by Vitality. I really hope this extends into the second half as well, because they have been under a lot of scrutiny, and I think they're doing really well considering.
P4 just... Whenever I think of P4, I always remember him back in Challenger League. I speak about this all the time as a player that would sit in constant meeting behind a shield with a shotgun and let players run at him. This season so far, what we continuously keep on seeing, it was one of our top players last week when he charged through the basement of Clubhouse. This week in 2 rounds, okay, he lost the poor mom and Citizen put him in the dirt inside of CC. In that last round there, he gets an opening kill or sees an opening and runs at it. He doesn't sit and play long angles. He doesn't sit and wait most of the time. He will actively run at the enemy team and thrive on the chaos. It's really interesting to see because I can't think of another player that really does it. But my God, is P4 calm and composed under pressure. Again, 4 or 5 times he's done it this season. More often than not, it works. Fair play to him.
Well, these back and forth rounds right now are surely worrying G2, who were the favourites going into this particular head-to-head. I think Ace put it best. Vitality are an unknown quantity. Speaking of unknown, can Bibu get it done? He does manage to get the most important side, and this is what I criticised last time, is that you need to try and get the exothermic, not the Selma, because it is the most explosive and the most hurtful in getting that wall open. They do manage, however, to get it, but that's going to turn out the fact that they don't even have the exothermic this time. They're going to be trying to use Hibana in line with the Selma, and I think when you lose something like a Selma against the Hibana, it's not so bad. So that's okay for G2 so far, but as a minute has elapsed now, they need to do this particular take better. They don't want to get absolutely shredded through like they did last time, and I think what Virtue might try and do is pinch through Con, but that's a tricky part to get inside.
Dare I say, and I don't want to jinx this, it has been one of the more composed starts to a round, without the kind of aggression out towards CC, without someone going nuts off towards a roam around the map. It has started with a pretty composed setup coming out of G2, where they're looking out towards the west primarily, and are now, well, started out towards the east, now looking out towards the west, and Vitality are mostly on site. Dare I say, it's playing out like a more expected round of Siege. We'll see how it devolves into the last 80 seconds as we are now stepping into it. Garage control still in Vitality's favor. 4 players hanging out towards sites or out towards red. Nothing too crazy expected, but we've seen what these teams can already do in the first 5 rounds.
Well, G2 still making their pinch push viable by making sure they open up the Con wall. Is there an impact to play with here? Yes, and it manages to get a really, really key part of those X-Kairos. In fact, all of the remaining X-Kairos are gone. No Selmas in hand here for G2. Guess what? If you want to plant over in Con, you're either going to have to run through the door, or make sure that you go plant over on platform. A cash plant is not possible. You know what's downstairs, however? 2 whole C4s. Smoke Babe still remaining. Vitality, when they prioritize the utility, they damn mean it.
A pixel off there as well on the crouch route from Kanto. Initially, maybe could have found him a kill onto the Melusi, but it's P4, the Melusi in question, who strikes back first and brings him down. It was a 5v3 momentarily, but suddenly G2 has swung it back to being a 3 versus 3. They've got the pinch out to the west, out to the east, but they don't control Garage, and there is a rotation looking straight through here. Kayak is in, finds a kill onto Rise, and is now going for a plant. The second time today we've seen that spot being used, but Shinka denies with the C4. Uno finds another. It's 2 versus 1. There's 1 second on the clock. Will they be able to get away with it? Uno's going to start sticking it. Is the plan coming out? 3 seconds on the clock. The spray's coming through. Oh, but he was missing it. But Virtue finds it through the floor. These rounds, man. What is going on?
Was he planting on the hop? He wasn't. He wasn't even planting on the hop at all. Wow.
He had no time. There were 2 seconds left, right?
I mean, that comes down to the fact that they had red pings on him, which was the perfect bit of intel. And sometimes you just don't know where those metal bars are going to be when you're trying to shoot through a vertical. We saw this happen on Consulate, the map before. Unfortunately, in IQ, post-player trying to shoot through 2 sets of bars on 2 floors above. You're not always going to be able to read it. That's why I tell players, make sure you strafe when you're shooting. Make sure you run a circle so that at least at some point you'll be able to miss the bars, shoot the soft, and get through. Doesn't happen. The vertical's used against them once a C4 makes the play. And you're right, something to point out, even though that round was explosive in the end, was probably that new plant position has been really awesome to see because it works very well once you have that con line of sight.
I can think back to the number of times in history when we've seen a ping come through and players spray thinking, oh, surely the player's model will be there. But they're not actually there. That was the diffuser who was spraying past and just narrowly missing. Oh, it makes for exciting watching, I'll say that much. 3-3 at the half, and now we get to step into a half I've been really interested to see. Again, G2, the biggest criticism that we've levied against them over the last few weeks, and there aren't too many to levy, is their attacks have been solid, their defense is a little bit slippery at times. This is a good chance for them to put that kind of, concern to rest here and show that they are a very solidly defensive team and show that they can put Vitality away, they can delay them, they can push them back, whatever comes down to it. Here they've got both mutes and bandits to make use of. Screams to me again that we're looking towards the east wall denial. Vitality should be making good use of the Thatcher, Thermite and Ace combo though to guarantee that gets opened in no time at all.
Well, I'm going to see exactly how G2 plans on working with this wall. Do they just close it on up with the mute jammer and let it go? P4, he wants a very swift entry in onto site. They know this, though. You can look over towards the defensive side, and I believe they had a little bit of intel there. I'm not sure how, whether or not it was that bulletproof over towards there or what was spotting that out as a whole, but somehow he seemed to look over there and be very aware that that's where they were in on early on. That's why Citizen currently getting the flank happening. Virtue goes down and falls on the other side of the site. But as Citizen rather tries to make that flank, he gets spotted very quickly and 3 different Vitality players look towards him. He gives that one up. It's too sweet. And he'll come rotating back to side, surely over towards red stairs. That was a really swift entry over towards construction. If I was a G2 player, I would have been shocked, considering platform was the area they were dealing with at the start of the round.
I mean, Citizen's still looking to make something happen here out on their own. There are a couple of players trying to make magic happen, it feels like. You've also got... I was going to say for a second, is he nearly being caught out and pinched on here? But no, he's not. Kayak, I was going to say, sat behind the shield, looking in towards construction, is sat there waiting and ready. That is the big thing that currently sits between Vitality and better access into this site. Gets smoked out, gets breaching round, gets forced back, basically. That will make things a little more cozy for Vitality. But Kayak will now be probably playing around this soft wall, looking from the top of red across into construction and using that as more of a challenging angle.
Well, they've been able to get a lot of control very quickly. They still haven't opened up con wall, and from all that swiftness we were talking and praising them for before, they haven't used that to their advantage to be able to get this wall. Oh, that's a 2-for-1. They managed to get the bandits off the wall, and of course the Banshee as well. And as Uno comes leaping out a CC window, he'll get one, but Rise, he's a little bit too aware of the gig that Citizen was putting on the board there, and I think had Citizen stayed alive there, that would have rather Virtue stayed alive. They would have been able to put a little bit more on the board, but it's a rush in the site, and Kayak can't do much.
He's got 3 C4 still in back pocket as well. Does fire one onto Rise, actually, so he has contributed towards the shutdown of this push. Is P4 to go a little bit crazy here. 1 versus 2. Oh my god, no way does he hit that shot on Citizen, but Kayak's just better. Pulls out the shotgun, wins the 1 versus 1. Man, this guy just keeps on adding to his tally of late round wins. He's turning into a real clutch machine, Jess.
That's what G2 wants. That's what you want out of any team that has a support player who's your shotgun SMG main 9 times out of 10. You want to be able to rely on them as your last line of defense. And if I had Kayak as my last line of defense, I'd be feeling pretty damn confident, especially against an explosive team as Vitality is turning out to be here on Clubhouse today. I would say that this is a stark upgrade for Vitality last week, in that these attacks have shown me they know what they want to do and that they're getting, easy ground early on for free. Almost, I believe Parker puts it, free real estate. They're taking as much free real estate as they can around the map very quickly. And then it's almost as if they just want to suss out. They just want to sniff around what's going on site, see if G2 will poke their heads out, and several of them did. So they are playing it well. I just think when it comes down to the chaos, that, you know, G2 are better suited to that at the moment.
It's funny because whenever I think back to old school Tempera, and of course we're looking at players like P4 and Shinka here is coming from that roster originally. I always think back to their game against Na'Vi on this map. And Na'Vi were on defense. They were 4-0 up, and I was like, great, there's no way they can lose this. And there's 2 rounds that then go the way of Tempera purely because players like P4 and I can't remember who else it was, someone else on the roster, I think it was Voy, would just rush in the site and just, again, thrive in chaos. And this is where we keep seeing P4 having these big opportunities here. Look at this flick he gets into Citizen in a second here. Well, not really a flick. Citizen just walks into his line. I almost think it was a pre-fire in a way and somehow manages to make it work. Unlucky timing from Citizen, I guess. But that's him getting 2 kills again in a 1 versus 3, bringing it to a 1 versus 1. Unfortunately, Kayak just a little bit better in that situation with a shotgun in hand.
I'm loving that a lot of these rounds and a lot of these games today are going back and forth, back and forth. The teams have sussed each other out through each of these play days that have existed so far. I'm loving that the G2 players, especially on their roam and lurks, they're deciding to play near each other. And this is important for the trade specifically. You can see G2, they want to do some of that drone collection, make their presence known on main stairs, rotate back down, and then you've got to re-drone it to see if it's even clear. And that's what Rise is doing now. They lose that bit of intel that is necessary, and they lose that drone that could be used towards an execution time. So with that all gone, without all that gone, rather, geez, it is way too cold in this office. I've got to turn a heater on, I'm telling you that much. Losing my voice, losing my my throat as I'm slowly talking.
I'm sure there are many people in Twitch chat who would love to give you a cuddle and keep you warm.
Do not start this. We know exactly where this ends up, and it's not a good one, nevertheless.
No, I wasn't about to say I would do it, don't worry.
Oh, thanks, Des.
I bet you freeze.
Yeah, I would. You're very cold-hearted, so I'm sure that doesn't go anywhere good for me and my needs. But as it hits autumn in Australia and it's currently 5:45 a.m. in the morning, it's absolutely freezing here. But what's heating up on your scoreboards right now is that P4 making the big hits here for Vitality. And over on the side of G2, they're sharing the kills around with Uno leading the charge in the frag department. Getting down the last 60 seconds here, Des, though, and if you're a Vitality player, you need to start speeding this up because I can't quite tell exactly where they want this execute to go down.
8 out of 10 segue, by the way. Let's see if it turns into a 10 out of 10 execute for the attacking side. Vitality, 60 seconds left on the clock, and it's still 5 versus 5. Again, one of those more composed rounds. A little bit of early roaming has been put to bed. And here comes P4 doing P4 things. The man does not stop. 2 kills for himself and manages to back his way out. Not really like P4. He's more a player that likes to charge forwards. But once you found those 2 kills for your team, you've put yourself in a 5 versus 3 with 40 seconds still to play. They're pushing down through main. A bit of a blind C4 coming out from Virtue there. I think that was. It was him, the only player left alive with a C4. Not going to find anything. And now Rise steps in. Can't quite channel his inner P4, but Shinka can. Down goes Kanto for the trade. Shinka going for a plant through covered up smoke. 1 versus 4 for Virtue with nothing but an SMG and a shotgun in hand. He's got a lot of work to do. Knows it's going to be down in towards the other side. Nowhere near him. I don't see him bringing this one back. And if he does, my God, is it going to be one hell of a clutch. It's no doubt going to turn into a 4 for 4 overall as another trade comes in. Someone needs to put some, I don't know what it is. You got to weigh this guy's ankles down because P4 is a madman once he gets going.
I think what I liked about it as well is that he said to himself, hang on, I've got to 1, reload. Number 2, I'm really low on HP. And number 3, I've had a huge amount of impact that has given us a massive man advantage. What if I just pull myself back, rotate back to the guys who are going for an execute over towards Moto, and then I can have even more impact once I've reloaded? That's a lot of discipline. That's a lot of discipline for a fragger who's as explosive as P4. You said it yourself, he usually just puts the foot on the pedal and does not let go. The fact that he pulled back shows me a lot of maturity, that he's grown over the past year of playing at Tier 1. And that's something that's exciting to see as a caster, as an analyst, and as a lover of esports as a whole. Watching these players mature, get better and grow, that's what you want for them. So exciting here for Vitality fans, for French fans as a whole, and for G2 fans who are sitting there going, shouldn't you steamroll a team like this? Nah, Vitality, they're just getting things started.
Oof, well, it's one of those where it's so difficult to call which way this game goes. Again, with the explosiveness and the volatility coming out of players like P4 for Vitality. Vitality and volatility goes quite well together. He's definitely channeling that in their gameplay. I'll give him that much. It's keeping them in the game. It's making them unpredictable for G2. And I think that is where they're starting to struggle a little bit, is how do you deal with plays like that coming down that aggressively when teams would normally pace things out a little bit? It's definitely making... the real ironic part for me is we came in today saying that Vitality are an unpredictable team. I meant unpredictable because we didn't know what team shows up. But today, it's unpredictable because you just don't know who's going to charge in and when.
Well, it was Uno with the unpredictable players on attack in the first half for G2, and now it's P4 on attack here for Vitality. Each team has their own playmaker, hand in hand. Nevertheless, we'll focus over towards this mirror, towards Jacuzzi. Bit of an interesting one there. Teams will try and open that up to try and negate anything throwing on out, and that's why they'll throw that Selma charge just right of that hole to make sure that they get themselves an opening towards the second mirror window. It's layer after layer after layer, and as Shrek would put it, as you pull away those layers of the onion, there'll be more behind it, and Rise, he'll decide to take out Virtue as he drops through Logistics Hatch, I believe. That's yet another unexpected play here from Vitality. I don't think anyone expected him to come zooming down in the first minute and 10 seconds.
No, well, here we go. Look at what he's doing again. Just let's crouch walk in. Why not? No one's here. I'll take that free real estate, as you say. Starts to charge in and push in, and he's going aggressive. I think there's going to be a couple of shutdowns coming out for the side of G2. Knows that one's down. Now he's got control of sight itself, and although the team can't yet follow him in, needs to watch main stairs. You saw the heads, bro! Does turn for a bit of a spray, but can't quite connect. This is, again, one of those really awkward retake situations where the attackers have blitzed their way in, taken everything away from G2, and they are just not able to respond in time. Plant goes down once again. The spearhead of P4, it is sharp, it is pointy. G2 unable to respond. It's down to Uno in a big 1v3 clutch, and I don't see it happening. Although does find one. Bibu gets the trade. Vitality pull ahead 5-4. It's looking shaky, Jess.
Jeez Louise. I mean, I know that's such a boomer saying to say, but that is literally the three different phrases that went through my head. The biggest one was just geez Louise. You cannot sit here and tell me that Vitality are not throwing an absolute stick in the spokes of G2 when they've got momentum about them. Vitality just stand next to them and goes nope, 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 over and over and over again in ways that I don't think should work against a team like G2. We absolutely just threw them up on a pedestal on Consulate the other day. What is it that they've come into Clubhouse now, and Vitality just seem to be able to pick apart them bit by bit by bit, and the moment they see a room that is possibly clear, I'm not saying it is, they don't even seem to drone it. They just go, well, no one shot at me from this direction. My name's P4, so I guess I'll just walk in, and now it's mine. I mean, I don't understand how this is working against G2, but the biggest criticism I have for G2 is that you need a little bit more intel. They're going to bring the mirrors to the downstairs to be able to work with that, but something's telling me they just don't seem to know when someone's walking straight into sight.
You know what really makes me laugh thinking about it is he plays so well into the stereotype of the crouching Ash that just crouch walks into sight and murders everyone. Like, when I think about, this is a well-known game that I won't drop the name of, but when certain characters are played in a pro game, everyone's like, oh no, ranked is going to be full of people justifying what they're doing with this stupid champion hero or whatever because that pro player's done it. I would love to see the day that I get into a game or anyone gets into a game and someone goes, Ash, what are you doing? You just ran forward and died. He's like, oh, P4 can do it, so can I. Inspiring Ash mains everywhere, I'm sure, my son. Let's see if it carries on, though. 5-4 to Vitality. One more round. They hold G2 to match point. They hold them to ransom and say, guys, you go into overtime. We're taking at least 1 point off you here. And with Na'Vi already dropping a point today, is it a trend we're going to see? Will G2 do the same? Maybe even 2 or 3? We don't yet know. And will BDS do the same?
There you go. A lot of teams often falter going up against big names like G2. They overthink it, they overanalyze, and therefore they stall out. But Vitality says we're not going to fall to that particular falter. And as a result, they will go charging on in, whether it's straight on to side as P4 or G2 now. I think what G2 are looking to do, and that's why you can see them trying to slap these mirror windows on multiple entry points, is just give themselves a little bit more redundancy. Okay, maybe we lost our Care, maybe we lost our Banshee, maybe we could work with the mirror instead. A roaming mute shotgun SMG. Didn't expect this one, but when we spoke about an unpredictable Vitality, looks like G2 can bring it as well. But P4, he wants to absolutely snuff out that fire before it can even get started. And that is a lot going on before the half of the round has even occurred.
Very uncharacteristic, I think, to see Virtue, of all people, on the mute with an SMG holding Garage down, especially when the site is downstairs. If it was CC, yep, maybe I see it being like a stretch, right? You would never normally stick a mute in there because of the long-range gunfights that you have to take. But that was wild. I don't know if he got caught up there not expecting to be there that long or what, but Vitality kind of brushed it aside as if it were nothing.
The biggest problem now are these two mirror windows. If they were doing a dirt and kitchen hatch push, then these mirrors wouldn't even be a worry for them in any way, shape, or form. So I'm worried that given where the diffuser's positioned right now, they want to do a moto push. And where the mirrors are positioned is actually going to be a real big detriment. Cactus decides, yeah, dirt's free. That's the push I'm going to do. Kayak's got his back to him. I don't know if he knows. And as there is a lot of breaching charges going on above him, he is in a really bad position here. But he's got Uno by his side. That might be the only saving grace here for him as Cactus makes his way on in. But look where Bibu is. Bibu with the diffuser in hand. Will he be able to get in and get the plant, or will this be yet another frag fest?
I mean, I don't know, at this point it started relatively peaceful. Sure, there's a death on either side, but it's 4 versus 4, 20 seconds to go. Now Cactus finally shows his hand, pushes in from dirt, finds one, rides a second, 3 versus 2 as Kanto strikes back with one, but it's Citizen and Kanto to clutch things out big here. 2 of the quieter players in this game get shut down by Rise. He does it all for them. Vitality 6 and 4, and a result that I never would have put in my books for today. It definitely wasn't in my predictions. They are 1 round away from dismantling G2 here on Clubhouse.
Ooh, you know, I'm kind of glad, and oh no, I don't want to come in too early because this match is not done and dusted yet, but I'm glad that last week I was one of the analysts who really stuck up for Vitality. I said, look, they have a really good foundation. Like me sitting here, if I was to do a VOD review or an analysis of them, and wrap it over an hour or two, I could point out a lot of really good things that just when it came to execute was not appropriately pulled upon. I think Vitality has a great foundation. They have a really excellent support staffing system. I do think that there are a lot of crazy, crazy good players in their roles on this team that given a stage or even 2, we could start seeing them featured in majors even. I really do think, and even before that, if they really start to take this momentum. I agree. So these players under this organization and these kind of support staff, I really do think in the short time that they've had, they've shown a lot of really good steps to being a great team. So for me, it's really good that they're showing that here today. Was not that I don't like being proven wrong, but you don't want a team to fail, especially when they're looking hot.
What I find interesting is Vitality for the longest time were regarded as the slow team, right? They were very structured, they were very composed, they took a long time to do anything, and it was always a Hail Mary final 10, 15-second push to make things happen. Whereas you look back at like Tempera, and again, I know I keep on talking about him today, but P4, the aggression that he's brought to the team, the way that they're kind of just saying, look, there's a hole, there's a gap, I'm crouch walking through it, I'm going to try and murder everyone when I get through there, it's worth the risk. It is really lighting them up a little bit, and to draw back to that storyline of unpredictability, it's actually now starting to show in their gameplay as well, which is catching teams who are a bit more structured, like G2 off guard, it feels like. Really excited to see how future weeks build on for Vitality, but for G2, they're focused on the here and now. They need to win this round to keep the dream going. Otherwise, Vitality take all 3 points, and G2 take a massive dent in their title hopes, I guess, to take that #1 spot at the end of stage 1.
And they've got so many other teams that they have to go up against at the moment. BDS, Rogue's been lighting up the scoreboard as well. Good on them for, securing some well-needed points. Na'Vi hitting the top as well. I mean, we have seen so much from so many teams. And now today seemingly is Vitality's day, but not if there's going to be G2 to answer with it. And okay, that's a nice little bait in place.
Nice.
Bait in place so that we can get the Ash Charge underneath. The Ash Charge barely misses. Oh no, he tries to shoot it off in time. Will he explode? Hello, that radio should have absolutely killed, or at least DB and Oduno, and he gets a little bit of a free parking ticket there as he was able to scoot out with his life somehow, some way. But Bibu gets the wall open. The Ash Charge underneath does its job. but to what cost at this point, with the grenade being lost, which would have certainly been used to get garage control.
They are gearing up just for a pure push here through the breach. It's going to be one of the kind of like, I guess, trademark Vitality aggressive players. Yes, it will. Smoke is in. They're trying to blow up any of the utility that might hinder them a little bit further and open up the angle into Garage to make Kanto start sweating as he hits the deck in here, not wanting to be seen by these longer angles. You can see them gearing up for this solo push. I think it is so risky. Teams normally always take at least 2 points to go for a push, and he steps up at the right time. Shinka swings about as half a second too late to stop P4 going down, but does at the very least get the trade. Cactus, he's already dead, buddy. Start worrying about the site.
Well, there you go. Now they have garage control, and Virtue, does he have a C4 below it? They're going to have to deal with him? No, he's got impacts, but that can be just as dangerous, especially if you plant in the default position. An impact underneath will expose your entire body, but speaking of being exposed, Virtue will expose his entire body to the lobby double door. That's a freebie for Shinka. Surely that came off a drone call. You can't just have the spidey senses to know someone's standing right in that spot. But either way, for Vitality with 20 seconds left, it's not the 20-second meta anymore, boys. It's talking about getting on site and getting this plant down.
They're going to have to plant in a really awkward spot here. They can't plant in the new, air quotes, default spot. Oh, Cactus gets stuck in. It's going so deep. Oh, gets put down by Kayak inside of Red. I don't think they managed to hold on to this one. It's a 2 versus 2. Citizen and Kayak, all they've got to do is push, and push they will. The kills come through, but sadly only find one. G2 do manage to close out round number 11, 6 and 5. I can't believe it's this close between these two.
Given the back and forth we've had, and I think we say this a lot of games where it is quite close, I think it would be befitting of both of these teams to walk away with some points. I would not feel satisfied if this turned away as a 7-5 after the showing that we've seen from Vitality. A lot of people are going to turn around and go, yeah, but you can't rely on P4 to do this, 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 and this, but they haven't. It's not like the other game we saw, what was it, VP being carried by Rask or more dominant showings from teams today that have had top-heavy leaderboards. That's not what we're seeing here from Vitality. There are different players doing different roles to, predominant success, whether it's the flex frag or flex support. They're doing their role here. So I think personally, this needs to go to OT because I really get a good sense here that these players are putting everything on the line here for this matchup.
Ooh, I think the only thing that makes me slightly nervous about it is that round was quite telling, and this is not at all trying to say Vitality are playing awfully. They're not. You can see they have a lot of reliance on P4 because what was the game plan? You prevent Kanto from peeking in from Garage in towards site. P4 runs into site, kills maybe 1 or 2 people. Citizen, I think, was his intended target, playing inside of Cash. Once he'd gone down, it got a little bit lost of Vitality. They weren't quite sure of the game plan. They dropped out of playing on Breach and trying to play behind P4 and instead said, no, we need control of Garage. Let's go and push through there instead. They were eating smoke and were like, well, we now need to push and go aggressive. Like, they even went as a kind of... So as aggro or as confident, I guess, in trying to plant through the smoke itself. And we saw how that final kind of 2v2 came down. It does signify a little bit of chaos and a lack of composure when it comes around to those crucial moments where you haven't got P4. But like you said, on the day when P4 is playing this well, why wouldn't you try and play behind him? It doesn't mean that's the only ace they've got up their sleeves. There might yet be more to show in future days.
Bibu's waiting for that EMP to drop over towards his wall so that he can open up the Con wall. That's going to be his first ingress over towards Con, and Rise will use it as a rotate cut as well. This is really, really important because if they decide to open up the platform wall as well, it means that no one can escape out of Cash without dying, essentially. You would have to take the gunfight. You would have to at least try and take a kill on your way out, and that's what Vitality are setting up for. But guess what? Citizen says, you were going to rappel up there. I have an answer for it. It's an impact and it's a run out. And oh my God, for one of the highest rated fraggers in all of EUL currently, he is putting on a show for us. Might have a negative KD now, but he's having a positive impact this round.
And that's huge because that was the whole setup from Vitality, was to deny those cuts, then pinch the members of G2, the two that were extending out into CC, into this line of death that essentially had been set up by Vitality. But that's simply not going to happen. P4, I don't think he noticed someone was at that window for a brief second, thought there might be a bullet hole there, but apparently not. Won't be able to find anything just yet. We're going to need a big time hero play here if they're going to make anything happen, because 3 versus 5, yes, it's 90 seconds to play, but the numbers do not look kind for Vitality.
They still have quite a bit of time to work with here, so a pick or two might really bode well for them. But in a round where they are risking either 3 points or at a complete overtime, this is not where you want to be. Citizen, the playmaker himself, has done his job, and so with about 70 HP, he's going to rotate all the way back over towards site. And now the rest of the G2 players are laying in hibernation. They're waiting to see what Vitality has to work with here as we're getting down to the last 60 seconds in the round. Look at all these players. Not a single one of them overexposing themselves because they've got the man advantage and the two-man advantage, which is going to be a huge work for them. You could have seen the foot of the G2 uniform there, but it won't be the play. And all of a sudden now, Shiga decides to absolutely repel his way on out as P4 decides to make a very questionable play.
It's the P4 special. We've seen them all day long so far. Jess does go hyper aggressive. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Overtime, abound we go as G2 managed to put a dent in Vitality's streams of those sweet 3 points. At least one team will walk away with 1 point, the other with 2. Who that's going to be remains to be seen in these next 3 rounds.
Oh, what a shame. And I think whoever the analysts were last week for Vitality, my biggest agreement that I had was that Vitality looked like when round after round started going their way, they couldn't capitalize on it, use the momentum, and put that into a game win. And I think that comes down to a mentality thing. Is that when you start getting round after round, things are working, and maybe it's not you making the plays, maybe it's P4, maybe it's, I don't know who else you got on your roster that might be making the plays, maybe it's Rise who's putting the kills on the board in the first half, and you're relying on them to consistently perform round after round, you get a little complacent, for lack of better words. And then when you start to get into the crux of the winning the match, literally throwing yourself on a match point, you throw it out the window, you forget your key fundamentals, and Citizen absolutely takes advantage of it as a result. So for me, love seeing a very cool, calm, collected G2 in moments of panic like that, and then just letting Citizen run wild and be the fragger that he is. It's just awesome.
You know, one player that I do want to give a bit of a note to today, because he has had a rough probably year in terms of, rating, KDs. Uno, he's done 12 kills so far in this game. When we think back to the first half when he was playing on the Thatcher, would do, dare I say, what P4 did, probably under more information and a little bit slower, would just appear on site for G-Men Bedroom, for example. He was inside a bedroom. When he was on this site earlier on, he was attacking into Catwalk and appeared out of nowhere. He's making the same informed plays that P4 is, albeit with a little bit less risk, and giving us very similar results. He's 12-8, P4's 12-9, almost identical.
You're absolutely right, and I think the reason we couldn't hype him as enough was that we just didn't realize he was inside sometimes. He was just doing his thing without anyone noticing. So good on him for making it work and knowing where he can and cannot fit in on the map and make a really good bit of impact. Speaking of impact, Rise, I believe the reason he's going in below and Cactus will be live droning him is so that he can get a grenade underneath. Especially when you've got a bandit trigger to work with, a grenade underneath will almost 9 times out of 10 secure you a kill unless they are moved back from the wall. So that's how they're going to deal with it this time. Not going to ash underneath the wall. Instead, they want a grenade underneath it. My problem is I don't think there's an active bandit trigger on the wall just yet. And I don't know where he is. He's come back over now. So if he does happen to sort of sit on the wall, Rise will get a bit of a freebie here.
Just get rid of both of the bandits instead, which is nice. I think Uno's going for the wrong side of the wall. Assuming Bibu placed it in the middle. We've seen that twice today so far.
Yeah, we have.
Unfortunate.
They thought that grenade would deal with him. Why not? Oh.
Yeah. You're taking such a risk with the places of these thermite exothermics. I'm not quite sure what's going on. P4 being patient. I said he doesn't really take the long angles. He definitely took it here. Uno noticing he's probably screwed that one up a little bit there in the dying seconds, and all the hard work was done. He only had to get that one trick off, and it was a done deal. Unfortunately, can't quite connect, and that east wall is opened up. So Vitality have got the one angle they're looking for. Last time round, they just said, right, we're going straight in through the ECC breach. We don't care about garage. We don't care about west window. We're just going to go for it. Here, I think there'll be some presence of mind, given that the red ping is coming out onto the gadgets in garage, to take that a little bit earlier and factor it into their attacks.
What are you doing, Citizen? I know you had a great impact last round, but you don't have to throw bodies as a sort of prize over towards Vitality. Those are a numbered disadvantage that not many teams can come back from. We've seen Empire do it exactly the same way on this exact site last Playday. Shepard coming in with the clutch in that exact position Kayak is now, SMG and shotgun. But I think that there's too tall of an order now. P4 is below, making sure that no C4 or vertical play happens. They've worked out exactly where this Valkyrie cam is to give all of the intel that they would need. And with 2 smoke babes left, is it enough? Now the Cactus is going for the plant. Surely it is. There you go. He'll keep he'll keep trying to bait it out, but paired with a C4, there's not much you can do. But the numbers advantage still squarely in the hands of Vitality.
A bit early because they had about 30 seconds to play with and all this utility. They had 2 smokes and a C4, but they committed them pretty much all in the space of the same 7 seconds. Not quite the ideal rotation, but in those numbers disadvantages, you're already counting G2's chickens, I think, at that point. So for Vitality, they move up to match point. It is 7-6. Can G2 bounce back, or did Vitality take the lion's share of the points?
My heart is racing because I really can't tell you based off maybe who's been the most consistent throughout this matchup. And you're looking at the round count going, what do you mean consistent? It's been back and forth, back and forth. Well, really, when it comes, push comes to shove, I think G2's been slightly more consistent. Looking at the leaderboard, okay, maybe a bit top heavy, but that was from the first half. Uno snagging a lot of those free kills by being unpredictable, the same way that P4 top of the leaderboard for his team has been. But I think if I'm looking overall, here, right now, bottom floor site with the defense. Oh, a couple of those, I think one of their bottom floor defenses last time in the regular, before we got to OT, they barely won it out of a clutch. Am I remembering that correctly in my notes here? Came down to them having
most
a
of the rounds came down to a clutch. Which round are you referring to?
Oh, geez. Now I'm trying to pull up 78 of my different Excel sheets here.
You're looking in the first 6 rounds, it would be, I imagine.
Yes.
P4
correct.
and Cactus won a 2 versus 4, and they won.
Yep. There you go.
Yep.
That's exactly what I'm referencing, is that how much stock do I put in a 2v4 clutch? That's probably not very confident, at least in my mind. And that seems more of a G2 mistake than it does possibly a Vitality win, let's say.
Oh, well, it's so hard to call which way a given round goes, I think. I mean, one thing's for sure, you're not getting a crouch walking P4 pushing on site this time because he's on the defensive side. But equally, we've seen the clutches that he can bring in the late round. In that 2 versus 4 that we referenced just a second ago, it was him charging his way into the boxes area down by mannequins, collecting 2 kills. I think Cactus got one as well from inside of Church. They can make these plays happen, and that's what I think G2 needs to be so careful of, and they are being as cautious as can be. They're starting with the top floor clear. They're droning everything out to make sure that no one's hovering around upstairs anymore. They've even got the rotates cut. And it is Rise who's hanging around. The biggest worry here, with him being on the Oryx, you feel you've cleared that ground once. He can just hop back up a hatch.
Yeah, that's the worst part of Oryx, and of course, I've not really seen him used to great effect on many maps. I think we saw, Leon or Aces on it on Consulate once, have a really big impact, and those are the ones that we can look back on, but there are far too many for us to reference to give you a good indication whether the Oryx will make a good play or not. You can see now they're checking, is our rotate cut, is lobby double doors open or closed? It's closed, we're safe to rotate around. Rise says, well, I want to feature upstairs just a little bit longer. I want to be the nuisance, but I think the call will come down that now that you've wasted almost the entire half of the round, it's time to come back to site, guys. We've wasted time, crucial time for G2. Let's just play the turtle strat from now on out.
About 90 seconds wasted definitely isn't one to frown at, because G2 are still sniffing around the top floor like, well, where are they? How have they retreated back that fast? We must have seen them somewhere on the rotate cuts. The answer is no. They are 5 alive back on site, and as you alluded to, that does start to put the pressure on G2 a little bit. We've talked about teams in the last couple of weeks leaving things to the final 10, 15 seconds and being in a spot where you cannot make a single mistake, because if you do, it can be fatal and you have no time left to course correct as that clock hits 0. So let's see if G2 can get the pace up a little bit here. They're getting the hatches opened up. They're starting the work they need to on the first floor here to start thinking about their execute. No one yet inside the hallway, mind you. I want to see Virtue getting inside here, start opening this floor up a little bit for them. Unless they're saying, we don't want kitchen, we don't care about it at this point. Uno almost getting himself taken out there by a C4, left with about 7 HP. That could be influential on this round. The fact that he is not dead, keep a close eye on what he can achieve given the game that he's had so far.
Sometimes it can be that 10 HP in a dream that gets you through the round. 30 seconds left, and this time delay that Vitality implemented has worked wonders. But you know what works better? Gunshots in the head. Rise goes down, but P4, who's having the game of his life, will answer back. And as we get down to the last 17 seconds, Des, this is do or die. It's a gun frenzy.
It's turning into that very quickly. It's Virtue trying to bring one out to Bibu. 3 versus 3. P4 is dead. You're looking at Virtue and Citizen on the other side. You've still got some big gunners left alive with 3 seconds to go. They need to find these kills, but Cactus, he finds 2. He's gone absolutely huge, and Vitality will take it out of their chairs. They know what they've just done. They have put down one of the top 3 teams in Europe right now, and that win means so much for Team Vitality.
The hard-fought victory that's being spread across your screen right now with a very, very boisterous Bibu to your right. That's who you're seeing in the top right. I'm surprised his camera's not bouncing off his table as he is screaming in delight. The rest of the team's laughing in credulation as to what they've been able to achieve. 15 kills for P4, followed by 12. I don't think it was the kills in the end there, at least when we're not talking about P4. I think it just came down to dwindling the time of G2 in that last round there, and sometimes that's all you need to do. The rotate back was the right call. I'm telling you, Vitality, they've got the foundations very, very well set in a very short amount of time. They said they barely played together yet, Des. I'm telling you, this team is ready to go.
I always say as well, in those final 10, 20 seconds, the clock becomes the 6th man for the defenders because the pressure that builds on the attackers. And fortunately, I guess for Vitality, there's a guy called Cactus playing on the Maestro, sat inside a site. We saw it on Consulate from them last week as well. The man is an absolute machine with the operator, and it's really good to see him stepping up in a big round with those closing 2 kills. Vitality 8-6. Who would have thought it? 2 points for them, 1 for G2. Not a scoreline any of us could have predicted. Let's go to the desk and get their thoughts on this matchup.
Thanks so much, Jess and Des.